Wonderful. It's great to see everybody. A bit more volume in here. Thanks. You can raise the volume on this. Thank you. Let's all rise together. It's a beautiful day. It's always a beautiful day.
Yes.
Because we have the Spirit of Yeshua within. Exciting. Shema Yisrael,
Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Baruch Shem Kavod, Malchuto, Le'olam Va'ed. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. Blessed is his name and his glorious kingdom for all eternity. And you shall love Adonai your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your strength. These words which I am commanding you today are to be on your heart. You are to teach them diligently to your children, and speak of them when you sit in your house, when you walk by the way, when you lie down, and when you rise up. Bind them as a sign on your hand,
and that be a frontlet between your eyes, and write them on the doorposts of your house
and on your gates. And you shall love your neighbor as yourself. In the entire Torah and the prophets hang on these two commandments.
Thank you, Lord.
Thank you, Lord.
Hallelujah.
Lifting holy hands in worship. all that he's done, all he is, who he is. He looks past our faults. He looks through the eyes of Yeshua to see us clean and standing whole, filled with joy, filled with forgiveness, clean and whole before him. Thank you, Father, for your mercy, for your grace, for your patience, for your goodness, for your faithfulness, for your strength. We give you honor. We give you majesty. We place you in the highest place in our lives again today. Thank you, Lord.
This morning's parasha is Vayishlach, and he's sent. And it begins with at Bereshit, Genesis 32. Malcolm's coming to read. Jacob sent messengers out.
Then Yaakov sent messages before him to his brother Esau, to the land of Seir, the field of Edom. He also commanded them, saying, "This is what you should say to my lord, to Esau. This is what your servant Yaakov said. I've been staying with Laban and have lingered until now. Now I've come to possess oxen, donkeys, flocks, male servants, and female servants. I sent word to tell my lord in order to find favor in your eyes." The messengers returned to Yaakov, saying, "He went to your brother, to Esau, and he's coming out to meet you, and 400 men with him." So Yaakov became extremely afraid and distressed. He divided the people with him, along with the flocks, the herds, the camels, into two camps. For he thought, if Esau comes to one camp and strikes it, the camp that's left will escape. Then Yaakov said, "O God of my father Abraham and the God of my father Isaac, Adonai, who is with me, return to your land and to your relatives, and I will do good with you. I am unworthy of all the proofs of mercy and all the dependability that you have shown to your servant. For with only my staff I have crossed the Jordan, and now I have come to two camps. Deliver me, please, from my brother's hand, from Esau's hand, for I am afraid of him, and that he will come and strike me, the mothers with the children. You yourself said, I will most certainly do good with you, and will make your seed like the sand of the sea, and cannot be counted because of its abundance. So he stayed overnight there. Then from all that had come into his possessions, he took an offering for Esau his brother, 200 female goats, 20 billy goats, 200 ewes, 20 rams, 30 milking camels, and their young, 40 cows, 10 bulls, 20 female donkeys, and 10 male donkeys. He put them in the hands of his servants, and each herd by itself. And he said to his servants, "Pass over before me, and put a gap between each of the herds." Then he commanded the first one, saying, "When my brother Esau meets you and asks you, saying, 'To whom do you belong, and where are you going, and to whom do all these before you belong?' then you are to say to your servant, to Yaakov, 'It's an offering sent to my lord, to Esau, and look, he's also behind us.'" And he also commanded the second one, the third one, and all those who were going behind him flock, saying, "Say the same exact thing to Esau when you find him. Then you are to say, 'Look, your servant Yaakov is also behind us.' For he thought, 'Let me appease him with the offerings that goes ahead of me, and afterward see his face. Perhaps he'll lift up my face.' So the offering passed over ahead of him while he spent the night in the camp. Then he got up that night and took his 2 wives, his 2 female servants, and his 11 sons, and crossed over the ford to the Yabok. And he took them and sent them across the stream, and he sent across whatever he had. So Yaakov remained all by himself. Then a man wrestled with him until the break of dawn. When he saw that he had not overcome him, he struck the socket of his hip. So he dislocated the socket of Yaakov's hip when he wrestled with him. Then he said, "Let me go, for dawn has broken." But he said, "I won't let you go unless you bless me." Then he said to him, "What is your name?" "Yaakov," he said. Then he said, "Your name will no longer be Yaakov, but rather Israel. And for you have struggled with God and with men, and have overcome." Then Yaakov asked him and said, "Please tell me your name." But he said, "What's this? You are asking my name?" Then he blessed him there. So Yaakov named the place Peniel, for I have seen God face to face, and my life has been spared. Now the sun rose upon him, and just as he crossed the Peniel, limping because of his hip, that is why the children of Israel do not eat the tendon of the hip socket to this very day, because he was struck the socket of Jacob's thigh on the tendon of the hip.
Genesis 33, 1 to 20. Then Jacob glanced up and saw, behold, there was Esau coming with 400 men with him. So he divided the children among Leah, Rachel, and the 2 female servants. He put the female servants and their children first, then Leah and her children behind them, then Rachel and Joseph behind them. But he himself passed on ahead of them and bowed to the ground 7 times until he came near to his brother. But Esau ran to meet him, hugged him, fell on his neck and kissed him, and they wept. His eyes glanced up, and he saw the woman and the children, and said, "Who are these with you?" "The children whom God has graciously given your servant," he said. Then the female servants approached, and they and their children, and bowed down. Leah also approached along with her children, and they bowed down, and finally Joseph and Rachel approached and bowed down. "What do you mean by this whole caravan that I've met?" So he said, "To find favor in your eyes, my lord." But Esau said, "I have plenty. Oh, my brother, do keep all that belongs to you." Yet Jacob said, "No, please. If I have found favor in your eyes, then you will take my offering from my hand." For this is the reason I've seen your face. It is like seeing the face of God, and you have accepted me. Please take my blessing that was brought to you, because God has been gracious to me, and because I have everything." So he kept urging him until he accepted. Then he said, "Let's journey and be on our way, and I'll go ahead of you." He continued, "My Lord knows that the children are tender and that the flocks and the cattle in my care are nursing. So if they were pushed hard, just one day all the flocks would die. Please let my Lord pass on ahead of your servant, and I'll move on further gradually, at a pace suited to the livestock that are before me, and at a pace suited to the children, until I come to my Lord in Seir." Then Esau said, "Please let me leave with you some of the people who are with me." But he said, "What's this? Let me find favor in my Lord's eyes." So on that day Esau returned to his way to Seir, but Jacob journeyed to Sukkot and built a house for himself, and for his livestock he made booths. That is the reason that place is called Sukkot. So Jacob arrived in Shalom, to the city of Shechem, which is in the land of Canaan. When he came from Padan Aram and camped right in front of the city, he purchased the portion of the field where there he had pitched his tent from the sons of Hamor, Shechem's father, for 100 pieces of money. There he set up an altar, and he called it El, as Israel's God.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Lovely to be together. Genesis 34. So we go from a chapter on reconciliation to a chapter on revenge. And Dinah, the daughter of Leah, whom she had born unto Jacob, went out to see the daughters of the land. And Shechem, the son of Hamor, the Hivite, the prince of the land, saw her, and he took her, and he lay with her, and humbled her. And his soul did cleave to Dinah, the daughter of Jacob, and he loved the damsel, and spoke comfortingly unto the damsel. And Shechem spoke unto his father Hamor, saying, Get me this damsel to wife. Now Jacob heard that he had defiled Dinah his daughter, and his sons were with his cattle in the field, and Jacob held his peace until they came. And Hamor, the father of Shechem, went out unto Jacob to speak with him. And the sons of Jacob came in from the field when they heard it, and the men were grieved, and they were very wroth, because he had wrought a vile deed in Israel in lying with Jacob's daughter, which thing ought not to be done. And Hamor spoke with them, saying, The soul of my son Shechem longeth for your daughter. I pray you give her unto him to wife. And make ye marriages with us. Give your daughters unto us, and take our daughters unto you. And ye shall dwell with us, and the land shall be before you. Dwell and trade ye therein, and get you possessions therein. And Shechem said unto her father and unto the brethren, Let me find favor in your eyes, and what ye shall say unto me I will give. Ask me never so much dowry and gift, and I will give according to as ye say unto me, but give me the damsel to wife. The sons of Jacob answered Shechem and Hamor his father with guile, and spoke because he had defiled Dinah, their sister, and said unto them, We cannot do this thing to give our sister to one that is uncircumcised, for that would be a reproach unto us. Only on this condition will we consent unto you, if you will be as we are, that every male of you be circumcised, then will we give our daughters unto you, and we will take your daughters to us, and we will dwell with you, and we will become one people. But if you will not hearken unto us to be circumcised, then we take our daughter, and we will be gone. And their words pleased Hamor and Shechem, Hamor's son. And the young man deferred not to do the thing, because he had delight in Jacob's daughter, and he was honored above all the house of his father. And Hamor and Shechem his son came to the gate of their city, and spoke with the men of their city, saying, These men are peaceable with us. Therefore let them dwell in the land, and trade therein, for behold, the land is large enough for them. Let us take their daughters to us for wives, and let us give them our daughters. Only on this condition will the men consent unto us to dwell with us, to become one people, if every male among us be circumcised as they are circumcised. Shall not their cattle and their substance and all their beasts be ours? Only let us consent unto them, and they will dwell with us. And unto Hamor and Shechem his son hearkened all that went out of the city gate, and every male was circumcised, all that went out of the gate of the city. And it came to pass on the third day, when they were in pain, that the two of the sons of Jacob, Simeon and Levi, Dinah's brethren, took each man his sword, and came upon the city unaware, and slew all the males. And they slew Hamor and Shechem his son with the edge of the sword, and took Dinah out of Shechem's house, and went forth. The sons of Jacob came unto the slain, and spoiled the city, because they had defiled their sister. They took their flocks, and their herds, and their asses, and that which was in the city, and that which was in the field, all their wealth, and all the little ones, and their wives, took them captive, and spoiled even all the house that was in the house. And Jacob said to Simeon and Levi, Ye have troubled me to make me odious unto the inhabitants of the land, even unto the Canaanites and the Perizzites. And I, being few in number, they will gather themselves together against me, and smite me, and I shall be destroyed, I and my house. And they said, Should one deal with our sister as with a harlot?
Shabbat Shalom. Good to see you all. Okay, chapter 35, rededication at Beth-El. Then God said to Jacob, Get up, go up to Beth-El and stay there. Make an altar there to the God who appeared to you when you fled from your brother Esau. So Jacob said to his household and to everyone who was with him, Get rid of the foreign gods that are among you. Cleanse yourselves and change your clothes. Now let's get up and go up to Beth-El, so that I can make an altar there to God, who answered me in the day of my distress, and has been with me in the way that I have gone. So they gave Jacob all the foreign gods in their hand and the rings in their ears, and Jacob hid them under the oak tree near Shechem. Then they journeyed, and the terror of God was on the cities that were around them, so they did not pursue Jacob's sons. Then Jacob arrived at Luz in the land of Canaan, that is Beth-El, he and all the people who were with him. He built an altar there and called the place El Beth-El, because God had revealed himself to him there when he fled from the presence of his brother. Then Rebekah's nurse Deborah died and was buried below Beth-El under the oak, so it was named Oak of Weeping. God appeared to Jacob again after he returned from Padan Aram, and he blessed him. God said to him, Your name was Jacob. No longer will your name be Jacob, for your name will be Israel. So he named him Israel. God also said to him, I am El Shaddai. Be fruitful and multiply. A nation and an assembly of nations will come from you, for your loins will come
from your loins will come forth kings. The land that I gave to Abraham and Isaac, I give it to you, and to your seed after you, I will give the land. Then God went up from him at the place where he had spoken with him. Jacob set up a memorial stone in the place where he had spoken with him, a stone pillar, and he poured a drink offering on it and poured oil on it. Jacob named the place where God spoke with him Beth-El. Then they travelled from Beth-El, and while they were still a distance from entering Ephrath, Rachel began to give birth, though her labour was difficult. While she was struggling to give birth, the midwife said to her, "Don't be afraid, for this is also a son for you." Now as her soul was departing, for she died, she named him Ben-Oni, but his father named him Benjamin. Then Rachel died and was buried on the way to Ephrath, that is, Bethlehem. Jacob set up a memorial stone over her grave. It is the memorial stone over Rachel's grave to this day. Then Israel journeyed on and set up his tent beyond the Tower of Eder. While Israel was living in that land, Reuben went and slept with his father's concubine, Bilhah, and Israel heard about it. Now Jacob had 12 sons. Leah's sons were Jacob's firstborn, Reuben, Simeon, Levi, Judah, Issachar, and Zebulun, and Rachel's sons were Joseph and Benjamin. The sons of Bilhah, Rachel's female servant, were Dan and Naphtali, and the sons of Zilpah, Leah's female servant, were Gad and Asher. These are Jacob's sons who were born to him in Padan Aram. Then Jacob came to his father Isaac at Mamre of Kiriath Arba, that is Hebron, where Abraham and Isaac had stayed. Now Isaac's days were 180 years. Then Isaac breathed his last and died, and was gathered to his peoples, old and full of days. So his sons Esau and Jacob buried him.
Shalom. Now these are the genealogies of Esau, that is Edom. Esau took his wives from the daughters of Canaan. Adah, daughter of Elon the Hittite. Aholibamah, daughter of Anna, daughter of Lilian the Hivite, and Basemath, daughter of Ishmael, sister of Nebaioth. Adah bore Eliphaz to Esau. Basemath bore Ruel, and Oholibamah bore Jewish. Jaram and Korah, these were Esau's sons, who were born to him in the land of Canaan. Now Esau took his wives, his sons, his daughters, and all the people of his household, as well as his livestock, all his cattle, and all his possessions that he had acquired in the land of Canaan, and went to a land far away from his brother Jacob, for their possessions were too numerous for them to dwell together, and the land where they were residing was unable to support them because of their livestock. So Esau lived in Mount Seir. Esau is Edom. 43. Now these are the names of the chiefs from Esau according to their family divisions. according to their places by their names: Chief Timnah, Chief Alva, Chief Jesse, Chief Oholibama, Chief Elah, Chief Pinon, Chief Kenaz, Chief Teman, Chief Mibzar, Chief Migdeel, Chief Aram. These are the chiefs of Edom, according to their places of residence in the land of their possession. This is Esau, the father of Edom.
So my people are bent on turning from me. Although they are being called upwards, none will rise up. It's very sad, isn't it? It's a bit like today. Although they are being called upwards, none will rise up. How can I give you up, Ephraim? How can I surrender you, Israel? How can I make you like Admah? How can I set you as Zeboim? My heart is turning over within me. My compassions are kindled. I will not vent my fierce anger. I will not again destroy Ephraim, for I am God, not a man, the Holy One in the midst of you, and I will not come in fury. They will walk after Adonai. He will roar like a lion, indeed he will roar, and the children will come trembling from the west. They will come trembling like a bird out of Egypt, like a dove out of the land of Assyria, and I will settle them in their houses. It is a declaration of Adonai. Ephraim surrounded me with lies, and the house of Israel with deceit. Though Judah roams restlessly with God, yet he is faithful with holy things. Ephraim is grazing on wind and pursuing the east wind. All day he multiplies lies and ruin, making a pact with Assyria while carrying oil to Egypt. Adonai also has a dispute with Judah. He will punish Yaakov for his ways, repaying him for his deeds. In the womb he grasped his brother's heel, and in his vigor he strove with God. Yes, he wrestled with the angel and won. He wept and sought his favor. At Beth-El he will find us, and there he will speak with us. Even Adonai Elahezvot, Adonai is his memorial name. And you shall return to your God. So you should return to your God. Keep covenant, loyalty, and justice, and wait for your God continually. A merchant loves to extort with deceptive balances in his hand. Now Ephraim has said, how rich I have become. I found wealth by myself. I won't be guilty of any sin with any of my property. Yet I have been Adonai your God since the land of Egypt. I will yet again make you dwell in tents as in the days of the Moed. I also spoke through the prophets and I multiplied visions. Now through the prophets I will make parables. Since Gilead is full of iniquity, they are utterly worthless. In Gilgal they sacrifice bulls. Even their altars will become heaps of rocks along the furrows of my field.
Obadiah. The vision of Obadiah. Thus says Adonai Elohim concerning Edom. We have heard a report from Adonai, and an envoy has been sent among the nations. Arise, let us rise up against her in battle. Behold, I will make you least among the nations. You will be greatly despised. The arrogance of your heart has deceived you, living in the cleft of the rock. His dwelling place is lofty, saying in his heart, who shall bring me down to the earth? Even if you soar like eagles, and even if you set your nest among the stars, from there I will bring you down, declares Adonai. If thieves come to you, if robbers by night, how ruined you would be. Would they keep stealing after they had enough? If grapes gathered came to you, would you not leave some gleaning? How Esau would be ransacked, and how his hidden treasures searched out. All your allies will forth you to the border, and men that are at peace with you will deceive you and overpower you. Those who eat your bread will set a trap under you. He has no discernment. And in that day, declares Adonai, will I not destroy the wise men from Edom and understanding from the hill country of Esau? Then your mighty men, O Taman, will be shattered. So everyone will be cut off from the hill country of Esau, will be slaughtered. I'll find my reading. The whole thing, wow. Good to hear my voice, eh? Because of your violence to your brother Jacob, shame will cover you and you will be cut off forever. On the day that you stood aloft, on the day that strangers carried away his wealth, while foreigners entered his gates and cast lots for Jerusalem. You were just like one of them. You should not look down on your brother on that day of his disaster, nor should you rejoice over the children of Judah in the day of their destruction. You should not speak proudly in the day of their distress. Do not enter the gates of my people in the day of their disaster. Yes, you. Do not gloat over their misery on the day of their disaster. Yes, you. Do not loot their wealth in the day of their calamity. Do not stand at the crossroad to cut down the fugitives, and do not oppress his survivors on the day of distress. For the day of Adonai is near against them all the nations. As you have done, it shall be done to you. Your dealings will return on your own head. For just as you have drunk on my holy mountain, so all the nations shall drink continually. Yes, they will drink and gulp down, then be it thought they never existed. But on Mount Zion there will be deliverance, and it will be holy. Then house of Jacob will dispose those who dispose them. The house of Jacob will be a fire, and the house of Joseph flame, while the house of Esau will be straw. And they will set them on fire and consume them, so there will be no survivors on the house of Esau. For Adonai has spoken. Then those of the Negev will possess the hill country of Esau, and those of the foothills of the Philistines. Then they will possess the territory of Ephraim and the territory of Saman, and Benjamin will possess Gilead, and the exiles of his army of Yisrael, and will possess the blessed belong to the Canaanites. Confuse my eyes. Canaanites as far as Ephraim. While the exiles of Jerusalem, while here in Shepherd, will possess the cities of Negev. The victorious will go up to Mount Zion to judge the hill country of Esau. Then the kingdom shall be Adonai's.
Amen.
Hallelujah. We made it.
Shabbat Shalom. 144,000 marked with a seal. After this, I saw 4 angels standing at the 4 corners of the earth, holding back the 4 winds of the earth, so that no wind would blow on the earth or on the sea or against any tree. Then I saw another angel coming up from the east, having the seal of the living God. He cried out with a loud voice to the 4 angels who were permitted to harm the earth and the sea, saying, "Do not harm the earth or the sea or the trees, until we have put a seal on the foreheads of the servants of our God." Now I heard the number of those marked with the seal: 144,000 from every tribe of Bnei Israel, 12,000 from the tribe of Judah, 12,000 from the tribe of Reuben, 12,000 from the tribe of Asher, 12,000 from the tribe of Naphtali, 12,000 from the tribe of Manasseh, 12,000 from the tribe of Simeon, 12,000 from the tribe of Levi, 12,000 from the tribe of Issachar, 12,000 from the tribe of Zebulun, 12,000 from the tribe of Joseph, and 12,000 from the tribe of Benjamin. After these things I looked, and behold, a vast multitude that no one could count, from every nation and all tribes and peoples and tongues, was standing before the throne and before the Lamb. They were clothed in white robes with palm branches in their hands, and crying out with a loud voice, saying, "Salvation belongs to our God, who sits on the throne, and to the Lamb." And all the angels were standing around the throne, along with the elders and the 4 living creatures, and they fell on their faces before the throne and worshipped God, saying, Amen. Blessing and glory and wisdom and thanksgiving and honor and power and might belong to our God forever and ever. Amen. Amen.
Good morning. It came to pass when the days were near that he should be taken up, he intently set his face to go to Jerusalem and sent messengers before his face. They went and entered into a village of the Samaritans so as to prepare for him. They didn't receive him because he was traveling with his face set toward Jerusalem. When his disciples, Jacob and Jochanan, saw this, they said, Lord, do you want us to command fire to come down from heaven and destroy them, just as Elijah did? But he turned and rebuked them. You don't know of what kind of spirit you are. For the Son of Man didn't come to destroy men's lives, but to save them. They went to another village. As they went on the way, a certain man said to him, I want to follow you wherever you go, Lord. Yeshua said to him, the foxes have holes and the birds of the sky have nests, but the Son of Man has no place to lay his head. He said to another, follow me. But he said, Lord, allow me first to go and bury my father. But Yeshua said to him, leave the dead to bury their own dead, but you go and announce God's kingdom. Another also said, I want to follow you, Lord, but first allow me to say goodbye to those who are at my house. But Yeshua said to him, no one having put his hand to the plow and looking back is fit for God's kingdom. Now after these things, the Lord also appointed 70 others and sent them 2 by 2 ahead of him into every city and place where he was about to come. Then he said to them, the harvest is indeed plentiful, but the laborers are few. Pray therefore to the Lord of the harvest that he may send out laborers into his harvest. Go your ways. Behold, I send you out as lambs among wolves. Carry no purse, nor wallet, nor sandals. Greet no one on the way. Into whatever house you enter, first say, peace be to this house. If a son of peace is there, your peace will rest on him. But if not, it will return to you. Remain in that same house, eating and drinking the things they give. For the laborer is worthy of his wages. Don't go from house to house. Into whatever city you enter and they receive you, eat the things that are set before you. Heal the sick who are there and tell them God's kingdom has come near to you. But into whatever city you enter and they don't receive you, go out into its streets and say, even the dust from your city that clings to us, we wipe off against you. Nevertheless, know this, that God's kingdom has come near to you. I tell you, it will be more tolerable in that day for Sodom than for that city.
So have you worked out how more tolerable it would be? I mean, Sodom was demolished with what?
Fire and brimstone.
So how do you get worse than that? Quite something, isn't it? And do you feel like you've been sent out sometimes as lambs to the slaughter or lambs to the wolves? You don't feel like that sometimes? Well, that's okay. Because Yeshua actually did set them out to do it. He said, I'm going to send you out amongst them. Lambs amongst the wolves. So nothing to complain about, is there? Nothing to complain about, no. Because that's what we are. Sent out ones, aren't we? It says, and he sent. And it's interesting, of course, at the beginning, he didn't send himself. He sent out messengers, didn't he? But Yeshua sends us out as the messengers to bring the news, the good news that everyone needs. We had a really good neighbourhood barbecue last night, and always a great time to actually just sit and talk and ask questions, especially, because the Shabbat was about to start, with the yarmulke and the interesting look on and say, oh, okay, want to know about it, talk about it. Where do things fit in? And that's what we are. We're sent out ones. We are to bring the good news. Very good news. It's exciting. Yeshua went out into the neighbours' homes, into their places, where they were at, because that's where they're comfortable. Okay. We've got the authority, so going into foreign people's homes shouldn't be an issue. This is exciting. Getting into people's homes, seeing where they live, loving on them, caring on them.
That's right.
Because we want to see and know Yeshua. Well, last week's parasha, Vayetz, he went out. We followed Yaakov's travels from Canaan to life in Haran. That was near where? Where's that? Ever looked on a map? Oh, I'll put a map up sometime. Quite a handy thing when you actually see these different places. And it's really good to see where the things have and see how far they walked and how far they had to go to find their wives. See how far they had to go to find different ones, And it's not flat. Believe you me, it's not flat. And if you can find a tree to hide under now and again, in the baking sun, you almost need luck. If you believe in luck. Well, it's actually near modern Turkey, not modern Turkey and Syria. I'm through there on the border. The homeland of his mother Rebecca. He escaped his brother's Esau's wrath, and found a wife or four. His wives bore 11 sons and a daughter at this stage. He amassed a large flock of sheep and goats, and he spent a lot longer living in Haran than he actually had envisaged. 21 years, in fact, because he went with his father-in-law. And the parasha ends with the commencement of his return to Canaan, in the land of his fathers, and Avram and Yitzhak. He had some very defining God moments, didn't he? And his first being his dream in a place he called Beth-El. Yaakov's ladder reveals to him that there's a constant contact between his parents, between heaven and earth. Anyone wants a Jacob's ladder? Come and see Adam. He's got some, especially for the children. Somewhere anyway. You can always put your order on it. They work really, really well. His first encounter with Yahweh actually was previously relying on his parents' experience. And that's a good example. It's really important that each one of us needs to have their own revelation and own experience with God. So as young as we are, it's really important. We can't rely on our parents' faith too long. We must have our own, because we must be excited about it. We must really get it into our heart, as it says, write it on your hearts. Really important. So if you haven't, then ask him it. The Holy Spirit will abide. It's a picture of the love of and faithfulness of Elohim. Yaakov's ladder reminds us that when we fear Adonai, we can expect God's continued oversight of our lives, and that angels will protect us from evil. And that's just another really important point. You know, we know that 2/3 of the angels continue to serve Elohim. 1/3 of the angels didn't. They followed the angel of light, Satan, the devil. 1/3 of them fell. But interestingly enough, if you read through Ezekiel and read through Jeremiah, if you read through Jude, it says most of them went straight to Gehenna and actually are in chains and are locked up. Okay? So don't fear. There aren't that many of them floating around. They are, because we battled in the heavenlies. It's part of it. But the majority are not floating around. The majority are already locked up. And they'll only be released in 1,000 years after Yeshua's been reigning on the earth. So there you are. We've got it sorted. You follow Yeshua. And unfortunately, a lot of people do blame Satan for a lot of things, but it's just simply they haven't got their act together. Don't give him any more credit than he deserves. Now, Zohar tied this all in so beautifully, that was last week, with the story of Yeshua meeting with Nathaniel Bartholomew. That's the same person who was meditating on Bereshit 28:10 to 15. He was sitting under the fig tree and being called a true son of Israel. How do we know that what he was actually contemplating? That's what people do, Jewish people do. They sit and they read the scriptures, especially on Shabbat. Read it and meditate it and sit there and find a nice tree, sit under it. You found a nice fig tree, probably eating them at the same time. I'm waiting for them to come ripe on our tree. They're getting there. Beautiful. So how do we know that he was contemplating on it? Because Yeshua actually told him, you will see heaven open and angels going up and down, coming down on the Son of Man. So he actually knew what he was actually reading, had been reading about and thinking about. How about that? He was actually reading about Yaakov and seeing the angels going up and down. Have your own revelation. Okay? Make sure you have one. At least one. Hopefully a lot more. He had the privilege of seeing Yeshua in his fullness while on earth. Now this week's parasha, Vayishlach, which is, and he sent messengers out, commences with Yaakov in trepidation making contact with Esau, his brother, after 21 years. Any of you got a snitch on your family member? Huh? Any of you haven't got together with family members for that long? Don't leave it that long. The longer you leave it, the harder it is to really sort it out. I had a period when it was interesting. I tried and tried, but finally came through. Be persistent. Don't let, there be animosity amongst family members. Things will occur. They will happen. Get sorted. Because that's what God has intended. And when Yaakov learns that his brother is coming to him with 400 armed men, he automatically thinks the worst, and that he is on the warpath. That's what can happen if you harbour unresolved guilt, or a situation that becomes someone's forgiveness, that requires, someone's forgiveness. Yeshua was hot on the importance of putting things right with his brothers, in Matthew 5:23-24. It says, therefore, if you are presenting your offering before the altar, and there remember that your brother has something against you, leave your offering there before the altar and go. Reconcile with your brother, sort it out, and then come and present your offering. Really important. Because you want God to accept your offerings. Anyway, Yaakov showed real character as a father. He did some pretty slimy things, but he did. He showed real character as a father. And he did the right thing by putting his welfare of his family before his own well-being. He divided his family into two groups, and he sent them ahead across the ford of the Yabok River, and he remains behind for the night. It's here on the other side of the Yabok that Yaakov has another defining moment and must confront his personal conflicts and fears by himself. And it's here that he encounters a mysterious man, Ish, with whom he wrestles until daybreak. In response to Yaakov's struggle, the man, Ish, changes Yaakov's name to Israel, explaining that he had struggled with God and with men, and he had overcome. He knew that he had wrestled with God. Amazing, isn't it? He knew he had. Declaring, I've seen Adonai Elohim, Lord God, face to face. And not too many people can brag about that. And I've been spared. Hence we know that it was the pre-incarnate Yeshua. The pre-incarnate means before he became man. Okay? It was God before he became man. That's called pre-incarnate. According to Yochanan, John 1:1 says, in the beginning, he was the Word. The Jewish people, my people, they do not believe that the Messiah is part of the Echad, the oneness of God. Rather, he will be fully human only, as the son of David. And because of that, they struggle with the belief that Elohim could appear as the Messiah. And a study of this passage in the original Hebrew reveals more meaning than what's actually apparent in the English translations. At birth, Yaakov was given a name derived from the Hebrew word for heel, kev, because he grasped the heel of his twin brother Esau. And he was behind, right at the beginning, grasping for the blessing and the inheritance. But after Yaakov's encounter with Ish, this man, his entire character changes, as evidenced by his new name, Israel. And Israel, the Hebrew word, shares the same root as the word to strive, to struggle, to wrestle. And the destiny of Israel is to struggle with God and with men, but also ultimately to prevail. With Esau, there was a degree of reconciliation. However, they go their separate ways, with Esau settling in Seir, in Edom, and Yaakov in the land of his father, Canaan. And the seeds of hatred seemed to have been deep in Esau throughout the centuries. Alliances with the Edomites brought about, at best, superficial loyalty. Hatred always seemed to bubble up within his descendants as violence towards Israel. Hence the Haftarah, the prophetic readings for the Vayishlach. It's about in the book of Obadiah, or Obadiah. He was an Edomite who actually converted to Judaism, and he prophesied the restoration of Israel, as well as the judgment and destruction of Edom. And the descendants of Esau, because they sided with the Amalekites and the Babylonians in BC 683, the destruction of Jerusalem and the first temple. And Obadiah pinpoints the reason for Edom's destruction: violence towards Israel. Again, last week's passage, which ties in with Yaakov: you reap what you sow. That's a really important thing, to make sure that what we reap is what you're going to like. The message here for us is that when we fail to repent of hatred, resentment, and forgiveness, it can poison or even destroy the next generation. And that's the sad thing, because it can flow through. And you want to stop that. You want to make sure that each generation is actually building on each other. And that's the importance of building those things of resilience and strength and humble and nice nature in our children, so that they, in turn, will pass it on to theirs. Otherwise, they just miss out on so much, especially peace. He also warns the nations of judgment concerning Israel. And the day of the Lord is near for all nations. As you have done, it will be done to you. Your deeds will return upon your head. Returning to Yaakov's wrestling, how often do we wrestle for the blessings of God in our lives? In Hebrews 10, it declares, therefore, do not cast away your confidence, which has great reward. You need to ensure that after you have done the will of Elohim, you may receive the promise. This parashah speaks to us of perseverance and endurance, and required that's required of the people of God. It's tempting, after struggling and wrestling for what seems to be far too long at times, isn't it? To feel like enough's enough, and to let go of the confidence that God's promised for our lives. And we don't wait till it comes to pass. Philippians 3 verse 14 says, I press on towards the goal for the reward of the upward calling of God in the Messiah Yeshua. We need to be like Yaakov, who refuses to let go until he receives the blessing. So hang on there. Keep seeking God, asking him, asking for that blessing. You know, just don't settle just for, oh, well, everyone else gets it, but Don't let that happen. Don't settle for that. Keep asking for God. So it becomes real to yourself. Sometimes it takes longer than others, but persevere. Keep on going through. Does wrestling for blessing mean constantly fretting about situations in our lives? On the contrary, this spiritual wrestling constitutes the struggle to remain also at rest and at peace at the same time. Trusting in Elohim, because that's the important thing. Trusting that He will do what He says, and He will, and He does. Not always out the way we would like it, but confident in the fulfillment of His promises. In the Word, He says it. You claim it. You hang on to it. In returning and rest, you shall be saved. In quietness, in confidence, you will have strength. So Isaiah 30, verse 15. And just like Israel, it's also our destiny to walk in triumph. Whether we are born descendants of Avram or not, all need to be grafted in to the family of Adonai. Through Yeshua HaMashiach, Jesus the Messiah. All must. That's the only way. It's the Jewish nature to struggle and fight. We've always had to fight for our very existence. Today in Israel, they struggle to fend off the battling for neighbours who would love to destroy the nation. Daily life in Israel seems to be a struggle, even now as well. And they seem to have a super dose of COVID-19. They constantly have a lot of pressure, a lot of tension. It's just their way of life. I mean, when you're there, they don't even necessarily see it. They just, that's it, accept it. That's missiles come shooting over, dive down into the bunker. I wonder how we respond. How resilient are we? You know, as we have experienced, Israelis, they're loud. And they seem to argue and debate about everything. That is people. That's true. That is people wrestling with people. And it has some cost attached at times. Wrestling with God is different. And it also comes with a significant cost. The man touched Jacob's hip and it was strained. Thereafter, Jacob walked with a limp. Thinking about Apostle Shaul, says that he also had a thing which he had to bear all his life. You want to really be blessed? Do you really want to get that blessing? There might be a cost. Are you prepared? Is it worth it? We still have a memory. Something to remind us of. Think carefully about it. It's worth it. It is worth it. He actually now probably needed to walk assisted by a cane. No, he wasn't blind. He just probably had to walk with a cane or something like that. And they didn't have crutches in those days, no. No, they didn't even have one of those wheel things, you know. These days you can put your knee on a thing and... A knee scooter. What? A knee scooter. A knee scooter, yeah. Or, you know, these days you just dial up one of those e-scooters and stand on that instead. Wow, don't we have it sweet? Woo. Well, you probably don't really know what's struggling, not compared to these guys. And our struggles with Elohim, learn the importance of leaning on Elohim, on leaning on God, and never again trusting only just our own understanding. It says, Proverbs 3 verse 3-5 says, Trust in Adonai with all your heart and yes, lean not on your own understanding. That is it. As much as we think we are wise, we so much to learn. So often, when we are going through trials, we crave fellowship and comfort and wisdom of other believers, which is good. But there are times when we need to be alone with Elohim. During Yaakov's trial, he sent his wives and his children to the other side of the stream out of fear for an encounter with Esau. And he was completely alone. And that's when he met with Elohim. Likewise, when we're struggling, it's often just God and us. One-on-one, face-to-face. Tehillim, Psalms 63 verse 8 says, I cling to you, your right hand upholds me. Okay? So cling to him, and he will hold you up and lift you up. Yeshua likewise spent much of his time alone with Avinu Elohim, his father. On one extended occasion, when he was seeking Elohim alone, he went into the Judean desert for 40 days and nights. It was there that he was tempted. And after he had dismissed the multitudes, it says he went up into the hills by himself to pray. When it was evening, he was still there, alone. Matthew 14. The scriptures tell us that our wrestling matches are not with flesh and blood, but with principalities and powers of darkness against spiritual hosts of wickedness in high places. Ephesians 6:12. This is the one reason why our struggles can become so painful. We're sometimes not quite sure what or whom we're actually wrestling with. And this was actually Job's dilemma. Satan was causing him trouble, but did go with God's permission. And even now, he's probably debating with different angels and different ones around because he's entitled to. That's what he does. His pain, that's Job's, his pain was compounded by the insistence of his friends that he must have sinned for God to be punishing him so terribly. Remember, he went out at boils and everything else under the sun. Man alive. What a terrible state the poor guy was in. His friends, they told him that if he could only confess his hidden sin, everything would be just okay. And although Job was a righteous and blameless man, even in God's sight, he actually wrestled on several fronts. He wrestled with God, with man, and with Satan, and even his wife. If ever anyone was justified in giving up, it was him. Even his contentious, unbelieving wife, speaking for the enemy, advised them, give up and die. Who needs friends? Often the enemy will use those closest, and our thoughts will attack us to bring discouragement. Still, Job continued, even though his grief and confusion and his pain, to remain steadfastly confident in God, in his God. He knew who his God was. Do you know who your God is? At times we become weary, discouraged, or even feel like giving up. But only if we fail to rise again is that a real issue. That's the issue. It's not whether we struggle with God or whether we struggle with man or we struggle with Satan, or we struggle with ourselves. And 4, we have not lost until we simply refuse to get up again. That's the key. For through the righteous fall, it says, though the righteous fall 7 times, they rise up again. Are you righteous? Do you feel righteous? He's made you righteous. Proverbs 24. The Lord upholds all who fall and raises up all who are bowed down. Psalms 146:14. Why at times does it seem like we must wrestle with God for a blessing? There is a redemptive response in the struggle. In Jacob's case, the mysterious divine man could have overpowered Jacob in a split second. But in the struggle, Jacob's nature was changed to inherit the promises of God. He was not fit for the struggle. So too he was not fit before the struggle to be able to receive what God had provided. He needed to go through it. So too, we must be trained in endurance in order that we finish the race that is set before us. What does Hebrews 12:1-2 say? Anyone know? Let us run the race with that lovely word, endurance. The race that is set before us, looking unto Yeshua, the author and finisher of our faith. Woo! Yes. At times we need to put and keep the perception of our struggles in perspective. You know, sometimes they really get out of proportion, don't they? The things that come. We've really got to put our minds in check and in balance and say, hang about, hold it there. He has said, I won't give anything or put anything in your way that you can't handle. Oh, I like that. Okay? Good thing to always remember. When the difficult thing happens, remember, hey, he's already told me, I can handle it. I can handle it. Excellent. Excellent. That's why it's important that we have that birthed in our hearts, birthed in our spirit, so that we can nip it in the bud before it becomes more than it should be. Jacob struggled his entire life. How about that? He was the younger twin. He had a violent brother. He was tricked out of his first wife. His wages changed regularly. He was coerced into 14 extra years of work for Laban. His only daughter was raped. His sons committed absolute terrible murder and brought massive shame on his family. His favourite wife dies early. He loses his favourite son for many years, thinking that wild animals had killed them. Did he turn his back on God? No chance. He never abdicated his destiny in God. He knew, because he had that revelation, he had that experience, that time with God. Put it up there in his place, the light within. Yaakov and his children, they engaged and they struggled with the real issues of community life. And he was entrusted with establishing the Jewish nation. And Yaakov brought God into the world of commerce, politics, and everyday life. So too, we are called to be in this world, but not of the world. We walk a fine line and take cues from Yeshua. Yeshua did not separate himself from the common people and was known as a friend of sinners. He went to their homes and ate with them. Yet he was known for his miracles. He was known for his wisdom. He was known for his right living, and he was known for his compassion. He's in us. Does it sound like you and me? What are we known for? Even when Yeshua sent out the 12 disciples and then the 70 disciples, the villages, to bring the good news that the kingdom of God was at hand, he knew it would be a struggle for them. But it was part of building resilience and preparation for the times ahead. It's interesting that the theme of mission and comparing Yeshua's method versus our modern method, that it's inferred that Yeshua only required that people, or rather the communities, be given one opportunity. How about that? To listen and change their ways. And if they did not shake the dust and if they did not shake the dust of that place off their feet and curse them, or effectively turn them over to Satan, so that's what would happen. It added increased weight to the scripture that advises narrow is the path that leads to life, and few find it. But don't use that as an excuse not to continue to bring the message of Yeshua. And although we struggle and wrestle through our lives, we can have impact on those around us for bringing God into the real world in which we live, and showing that the world, how we deal with issues and how the struggles that we face can be dealt with by righteous living. 1 Corinthians 5 clarifies this in removing all chametz, or leaven, sin from our lives, not being involved in the world's ways in readiness for his return, and being prepared for the great tribulation, if called upon to go through it. Revelation 7 speaks of, the general destruction in tribulation. It talks about the seals that are used to mark those 12 tribes who will bring the message to the nations afresh. We don't know if the seals are visible to those marked, or if they can be seen by other believers. But whatever the case, God will protect them, because he said, I will do that, and protect them from harm as they carry out the mission, as they bring witness to the Jews and everyone else who have not accepted Yeshua as the Messiah. Many who believe will be martyred and be counted as those dressed in white, who stand around God's throne declaring, salvation belongs to our God who sits on the throne of the Lamb. A simple profession of faith is clearly not going to do it. It needs to have full repentance and acceptance of Yeshua as the Messiah as the only way. When this mission has been fulfilled by God's standard, the end will then come. It says in Matthew 24:14, and this gospel of the kingdom shall be preached to all the world for a witness unto all nations, then the end will come. It's important that let's walk upright, recognizing he has made us worthy. He's made us worthy for a calling. As with Yaakov, he made it worthy for a calling to lead a nation, to build up people. Likewise for each one of us. We're parents, we're called to lead our children, lead our families, walk rightly before God, so they are able to also draw others and be the light of the world. Because Yeshua is coming, and we need to be ready. Shabbat Shalom. Enjoy what he's done. Go and sit under that tree and have your own revelation. Hallelujah.
going to have the blessing together. So please stand and be with your family and friends. So we can bless you.
So go in the peace of Yeshua. Bring peace, speak peace. Bring wholeness, be wholeness, show wholeness, be the light in a dark world. Amen.
Amen.
Shalom.